And so I've been out for a bit, just traveling, competing, doing my thing, and now we're back to business. I'm back at home now, feeling good, getting a great UFC card this weekend. I wasn't able to do a prediction for the last card, but maybe I can drop some. It was good. It was a good UFC for live betting. I got some good live bets in. I didn't actually wasn't able actually to study too much the last card, but man, that was a great card. Kevin Holland, Stephen Thompson, great fight. I actually had a talk with one of my friends before the fight, and I was telling him, I was like, if this was a kickboxing match, Kevin Holland, Stephen Thompson, who you taking? Kickboxing, you're going with the 57-0 kickboxer or Kung Fu's good striker. He's like, if it was a kickboxing match, I'd go all in on Stephen Thompson. But it's MMA. But what if I told you that MMA fight, they were just going to keep it on the feet the whole time, you know? And that's Stephen Thompson's game. I mean, if you're Kevin Holland, he's got submissions on his record, but he's not a really a guy who goes out there, takes people down. He likes to strike it out, knock people out, and just bad matchup, right? Has nothing to do with anything else in particular. I think bad matchups are for real. I mean, you see Izzy Adesanya, he can, you know, dominate everybody's in that weight class except Alex Pereira. Just a bad matchup, considering he's a striker. But if you put Alex Pereira tomorrow against Hamzat Chimaev, I can guarantee you he's a huge underdog going into the Hamzat Chimaev fight just because, Hamzat's a grappler, bad matchup, blah, blah, blah. So let's get straight to the picks. So we got Jan Blachowicz, Magomed Ankalaev, great fight. I was hoping this fight was going to be Yuri Glover. That would have been great. But even, Yuri Magomed or Glover Magomed, I think that would have been more appealing to most people. I think John Blachowicz is getting a little older, but we'll see. But let's start from the beginning here. So I'm going to start with the TJ Brown fight on the prelims. TJ Brown is taking on Eric Silva, not Eric Silva. You guys are thinking about the one that like fought Matt Brown and older dude, but TJ Brown, he did lose his last fight to Shalin Nurdenbecki. I think that's the fight where that Derek Minner controversy, same opponent. So he's fought in the UFC since 2020, 2 years, pretty impressive. He's got only 2 wins, 3 losses, so you know he's okay. He's decent. Now he's taking on Eric Silva, Eric the King Silva, nickname. He's on a roll. 7 fights in a row, I believe, or straight wins, or six or seven straight wins. But I haven't seen him. I seen him fight that one time in the Contender Series, so I haven't really been able to, really see how good is this guy. He's good. Yeah, I'm gonna go with TJ Brown on this one, just because of the fact that he's got a little more experience. That one's a tight one, though. I could see why it's even odds. That could go either way. Ovin St. Preux, the Von Flu man, takes on Antonio Tricoli. This one's going to be a banger. Ovin St. Preux, he beat Mauricio Shogun Hua in a split decision his last fight, but Shogun's like, 50 years old now? Then he was, coming off 2 straight losses. A heavyweight, got finished pretty quickly. Um, Takes on Antonio Tricoli. Now, this guy's the real deal. He did have those 3 straight losses in a row in Legacy and Jungle Fight. That was 2016 and 2017, I believe. So a few years ago, now he's, back on track, but he's not fighting too often. He had 2 fights in 2018, one fight in 2019, which was a no contest. And he's, coming off a rear naked choke victory at Brazil Fighting Series 3. I haven't really seen too much of him. Ovin St. Preux, I've been watching, long time. I just think, I'm gonna go with Tricoli on this one. I think Govan St. Preux's time's a little done, and this Brazilian dude 6'6". That's huge for 205. The fact that he's 6'6", most 205ers aren't that tall. Yeah, I'm just leaning towards Tricoli, but even odds, that's a good bet. Let's see here. Billy Quarantillo takes on Alex Hernandez. Billy Quarantillo, he's coming off a decision loss to Shane Burgos. He's got one win in his last four fights, one win in four fights, so not too impressive. But he did beat Gabriel Benitez, which in that one, 1-3. I'm a little off there. He's taking on Alex Hernandez now. Alex Hernandez, when he came into the UFC with a bang. Like, I remember he knocked out Beneil Dariush, just flatlined him quick. Came in again, beat Olivier Aubin-Mercier. You guys don't know, he just won the PFL $1 million Grand Prix. He's got some good wins over, Trinaldo, Gutzmacher recently, and he lost to, Drew Dober, Moises. His last fight, he did lose to Renato Moicano, but Renato Moicano's been looking good. I'm slightly leaning towards Alex Hernandez on this one, so I'm going to go with the underdog, Alex Hernandez. I think he should be able to get it done. But when that guy's on, he's really good, Alex Hernandez, and he's a guy who's got power for the weight class, explosive. I think he can get it done. Now, this one's interesting. Chris Curtis takes on Joaquin Buckley. The fact that Chris Curtis is an underdog tells me, what am I missing here? Is he taking this fight on short notice? I'm not too sure. He lost his last fight to Jack Hermanson, but before that, he was on a roll. He had a good win streak going over some good, impressive guys like Phil Hawes, Brendan Allen, Adolfo Vieira, who's like a jiu-jitsu world champion, legit as fuck. And the last fight, he did lose to the Joker, Jack Hermanson. Now he's taking on Joaquin Buckley. If you guys don't know, Buckley was just on the Joe Rogan podcast. He lost his last fight to Imavov. The Imavov guy is for real. He beat Albert Duraev and Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Now, that was at welterweight, I believe. Not too sure. Actually, maybe Abdul moved up, because I know Abdul Razak Al Hassan used to fight at welterweight. He lost to Nasruddin. So both guys are coming off losses. I think I'm going to go with Chris Curtis, the underdog. I'm going with the underdog again. I think this fight, I could see this fight going to the decision as well. Both guys super tough. If it goes to decision, I would not be surprised on that one. Now, this was interesting. Edmen Shahbazyan, Dalcha Langobol. I don't know even how to pronounce that. Edmen Shahbazyan, if you guys don't know, is Ronda Rousey's former training partner. He was training with her since he's a child. Trains out of the Edmen Tversyan camp, who is Ronda's coach. And he's minus 310 going into this fight. Now, that's interesting. Minus 310. That's a huge favorite. He is 6'2", height advantage, significant. So why is that interesting? Because he's coming off 3 straight losses. He's minus 300 favorite. He hasn't got a win in the UFC since 2019. And now he's just a huge favorite going into the next fight here against Dalcha, which is pretty interesting. I want to see Dalcha here. So Dalcha himself coming off 3 straight losses. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Shahbazyan. I think if this fight stays on the feet, if Shahbazyan makes it out of the first round, I think he should be able to get it done. I think he's got the significant cardio advantage. I think he's better striker. I haven't really seen too much of Dalcha's ground game, but I know he likes, he's big, muscled up dude, likes to hit hard, knock people out. Yeah, I'm leaning towards Shahbazyan, but the fact that he's minus 310, that's not a really good bet. Now, Raul Rosas Jr. takes on Jay Perrin. Raul Rosas Jr., he's for real. This guy's the youngest fighter in the UFC roster, I believe. He came into the UFC at 17 on the Contender Series. Super, super talented dude. The fact that you're in the UFC at this young of an age, I don't see the UFC. He's not going to match him up. The UFC, they're smart. They're going to build the bankroll on this kid. They're not going to match him up with killers right off the bat. Why would you? He's 18 years old. Makes no sense. You're going to try to build this fighter up, and he's taking on Jay Perrin. I think Jay Perrin coming off 2 losses, you know, unanimous decision losses, hasn't got a win in the UFC yet. And he's taking on the youngest fighter. I think it's going to be a bad matchup. I'm going to go with, Raul Rosas Jr. I think matchmakers are going to try to get this kid another win. So Biggie boy, Jairzinho, Rozenstruik, Chris Dawkins. I'm feeling this one is not going the distance. Jairzinho, kickboxing world champion. This guy's got like tons and tons of kickboxing experience. Great striker, but he hasn't been looking too good lately. His last 4 fights, he's got 1 win, and that was over Augusto Sakai. But he's been fighting savages. He's got a loss over Nagano. No shame there. And then he lost to Cyril Gane. No shame there. Lost to Curtis Blades, who's an incredible wrestler. It was a unanimous decision. But then his last fight, it wasn't that great. He got knocked out very quickly by Volkov. Now he's taking on Chris Dawkins. If Chris Dawkins can take this fight to the ground, work his jiu-jitsu, he's a jiu-jitsu black belt, and he's he's got a good team with him. His brother's really good himself. Didn't look good his last fight against Eric Anders, but Kyle Dawkins is a good fighter. Coming off 2 vicious knockout losses, Derek Lewis and Curtis Blades. I'm slightly leaning towards Jairzinho if this fight stays on the feet. I don't know how Chris Dawkins' chin is. Yeah, I'm gonna go with. This is a tough one. This is a flip 'em because Chris Dawkins could, get this fight to the ground, but I'm just leaning towards Jairzinho. I have a feeling Chris Dawkins likes to stand and bang, and that might play into Jairzinho's hands. And man, that guy hits hard. This is probably the most interesting fight for me on the card. Ilia Topuria takes on Bryce Mitchell. Ilia Topuria is a savage. He's got vicious knockout power. He knocks out a lot of people. Knocked out what's his face? Ryan Hall. Yeah, exactly. It was Ryan Hall. And that's the thing. If Bryce Mitchell, simple. His game plan's simple. Take the fight to the ground, work his jiu-jitsu. He's got great jiu-jitsu, super strong guy. Not the most well-rounded, but, she's showing that he doesn't need to be really. He's got, incredible record right now. 15 wins, 0 losses. Now you're fighting a top guy though. His last fight, he got a win over Edson Barbosa. You go in there, you beat a guy like Barbosa. That's pretty impressive. But he did it, plain and simple, taking the fight to the ground. Now, Ilia Topuria's got a great ground game. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu himself. Simple. Ilia Topuria is trying to keep it on his feet. Bryce Mitchell, if he takes this fight to the ground, it's going to be probably a long night for Ilia Topuria, especially if he's on his back the entire time. So I'm slightly leaning towards Ilia Topuria. I have a feeling Ilia Topuria will be able to sprawl and brawl. Hopefully, he can keep this fight standing. Bryce Mitchell, though, I don't know. He's really good, Bryce Mitchell, at taking people down, and he's got that farmer strength. So that's a great fight. Dricus du Plessis, Darren Till. That's a great fight. Darren the Gorilla. He was out for a while. Then he came back. He fought Whitaker, lost the decision to Whitaker. No shame there. Whitaker's like, top 3 middleweights right now. But then his last fight, he lost to Derek Brunson. total different fight from the fight that's going to be happening against Dricus du Plessis. Dricus du Plessis is a striker. Darren Till is a striker. This fight could go either way. I'm slightly leaning towards Dricus du Plessis on this one. I think he's just been more active. I think I think he's looking really good. His win over Brad Tavares was pretty impressive. So I'm slightly leaning towards Dricus du Plessis, but Darren Till training with Hamzat Chimaev and those savages out in Sweden. So don't be surprised if you see some new tricks out of Darren Till, maybe some takedowns. Because if he takes Dricus down, that would be probably the right game plan to go. But he doesn't really take too many people down. But we'll see. I'm going with Dricus on this one. So this one, Paddy the Baddy, Jared Gordon. If you're the UFC, you want Paddy the Baddy to win. It's pretty simple. I don't know if Paddy the Baddy can keep making the weight. It's pretty impressive that he is making 145. You see right after the fight, this guy's blowing up to like 200 pounds. And then he's cutting to 145 fight day. And then he's at like 165, 160 when he's fighting, which is pretty impressive. Now he's racked up 5 in a row. He's got a huge name, huge following. The UFC, they definitely want this guy to win. I mean, if you put Paddy the Baddy against Conor McGregor in the UK or Europe, like that's a huge fight in Europe. Paddy the Baddy, big name. And if you're the UFC, you want Paddy the Baddy to win. You're going to try to build the brand, so to speak. He's taking on Jared Flash Gordon. Jared Gordon, he's been looking good. He's got some wins. He's got 4 wins in his last 5 fights. It was pretty impressive. He lost to Charles Oliveira back in 2019. No shame there. But then he ranked, started getting some good wins, 3 in a row. He lost to Grant Dawson, which, Grant Dawson's for real. He's a really good fighter. I believe he's like 19-1. Super impressive record. So really, he's been losing the heavy fighters. His last fight, he took on Leo Santos, jiu-jitsu fighter, world champion. He actually holds a submission win over GSP, not in MMA, but it was a jiu-jitsu competition. I think it was like a flying armbar, flying triangle. I remember seeing that a while back. So that was like his claim to fame. And, I'm going to go with Paddy the Baddy. I think he's been looking good. I think the UFC is definitely going to want him to win, and they're going to match him appropriately going forward, but they can only do that for so long, right? You've seen that with Sugar Sean. Once they start paying him the big bucks, then it's like, okay, we can't keep giving you tuna cans because you keep crushing these tuna cans. Now we got to pay you more money, right? So it's a balance. It's like, okay, we can build them only so much because it's depending on what we're paying him as well. But I think if you're the UFC, match him appropriately. I think Jared Flash Gordon is going to be a bad matchup. And this one is at lightweight 155, not 145. I've got that mixed up there. But I'm going to go with the Paddy. Now, the main event, John Blachowicz takes on Magomed Ankalaev. John Blachowicz still doing the damn thing, almost 40 years old. But, his last fight against Rakic, it was a leg injury. We couldn't really see too much. I just think styles make fights. I think John Blachowicz likes to stand and strike. Could he catch Magomed? I've seen Magomed get hurt on the feet before, but he's got a wicked ground game. If he takes Jan down, I wouldn't be surprised. And if this fight stays on the feet, I'm slightly leaning towards Magomed Ankalaev. He's a super patient fighter. He's a guy who will take his time. He does have a lot of finishes, but I've seen him take time and just crush people, just slice through them like it's sparring. This guy's going out there and sparring, so he's got a lot of experience. 18-1, I think. The main fight with what's his face here, like Yuri Prochazka was the main fight that they were trying to really pull for. But Yuri pulled out, and Glover didn't want to take the fight with Magomed, so here we have it. Jan Blachowicz, Magomed for the vacant title. Most of you guys are probably like, yeah, this is not the real 205 champs, but if Magomed can get the win over Jan Blachowicz, and he looks impressive doing so, I think no one's going to really complain about him being light heavyweight champion. And he's a southpaw, great wrestling. He did get caught by Paul Craig in a submission, but go back, watch the fight. He was dominating, 14 minutes, like 30 seconds of that fight, and then got caught right at the end of the third round in a triangle choke. And, that's Paul Craig. Paul Craig can do that. He'll get shit kicked the whole fight, come back, triangle you off his back. He's got wicked jiu-jitsu. And so I'm slightly leaning towards Magomed Ankalaev on that one. I think the age, this is probably Magomed's time. I would have loved to seen him and Yuri. I think you're going to see that down the road. That's going to be a great fight. So Magomed Ankalaev, that's my pick. And I'm going to try to post my my bet for this weekend on my Instagram, hopefully. And yeah, let's get some money. Let's make some money. It's time. New Year's resolution. Everyone, I want everyone who's watching here. New Year's resolution. We're tripling up. No more double up, boys. It's the triple up, boys. Now we're coming for everybody, and you guys need a place to bet. BetUS, promo code Iceman. You already know. And let's make that money out.